All right, we are live. Um, Hello, everyone. Welcome to Friday 420 Live. I'm Michelle Navedo. Today, I am joined by Tony Grech. Tony is a 57-year cannabis cultivation veteran and recently started the brand Budaro, family brand out of California. And Budaro is bringing old school varieties, hazes and land races to the California market and are having great success doing it. So, Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Tony, when you started growing 57 years ago in the 60s, you were in San Francisco at that time?
Yes. Yes.
So, in the 60s in San Francisco, there wasn't Google to figure out how to grow. There was no, AI or YouTube. There were a few books out at that time, I would imagine. How did you learn to grow? What got you started?
Yeah, the first book that came out was Bill Drake book, The Cultivator's Handbook. And it looked like a little, mimeographed sheets of, it didn't have a lot of artwork. It wasn't no fancy coffee table book. It was just how to do it kind of thing. And that's where I started, learning about 1212 and the dark cycle and, all that. And
So you found the book from online or?
No,
There wasn't
no
online. There wasn't online. Yeah. Let's go way back. Let's put ourselves in that place, man. So
I was in a bookstore and I saw the book.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted to grow, and I was already actually, putting seeds in soil. I just didn't know what it took to get it to bud or to go to flower.
Yeah.
So what I did was, I would sit there and look at it, and I'd look at the buds that I'd get out of a Mexican ounce, and I'd say, how did they get it to do this, Because mine always just made leaves. Well, it was growing indoors in a bathroom, under lights going on and off all the time, so it just never went to flower.
I gotcha.
And so what I did after I got the book, I found out what the story was, and by then I was living in the valley, in the San Joaquin Valley, in a little town called Riverbank, in the middle of a peach orchard. And it wasn't very far from the Stanislaus River, so I used to go down to the Stanislaus River, Great Escape style, and me and a friend, and I used to collect seeds, back in the 60s and the early 70s from pounds that friends had that they were selling ounces out of. And I'd collect the seeds and save them. And then we'd take them down there and plant them and scatter them in these river bottom areas where the river would go down after the winter flood and leave ponds all over.
Yeah. So you got fresh water.
Yeah, and it was unfarmed. It was just grazing area, so you didn't have people traveling through it all the time. So it was a good place to grow guerrilla style.
Yeah.
And when I got the first one I got to finish, a Mexican plant that finished, was, it was mind blowing. Everybody I knew was blown away by it. And it was called the Yule log. And we smoked it up. It was over a New Year's. We smoked the most of it up, and it blew everybody away. And then so I started growing regularly after that. Once I knew that I could do it, and you didn't have to live in the tropics. So
that was probably like some Oaxacan weed or something that was coming.
Yeah, I think it could have been a Oaxacan or a Michoacan or Guerrero, something out of there, and then I started, the Colombian came to town. And the Colombian that I got a pound of Colombian that I think it was wacky weed, because it was just little buds, dime size, nickel size buds at the biggest, and 3/4 seeds. And that weed, you roll a pinner of it and you take 2 hits of it, and it felt like you were shooting up weed. That's what I used to it was similar to that. You'd feel it going, once you took a hit, you'd feel it expanding in your lungs, and like going into your blood and going down your arms and your legs. You could feel the rush. So I wanted, that.
What
And
a
then the Thai stick experience was another one that left a dent in my brain that, I had to find something that was along those lines. So ever since then, I've been growing in a lot of different places through a lot of different situations to try and find these things over 57 years. And it's kind of like going on a trip with someone, you know, uh, uh, you know, the first time I smoked and got high with really good weed, I was in high school and I was a sophomore. And I was sitting on a stoop of this church on
what
a
year is this?
hill.
What year is
Look,
that?
huh?
What year is that?
It was 1968.
Yeah, I wasn't born yet.
Yeah. So I was sitting on the stoop and I was up on this hill above San Francisco Airport, and down below me was Highway 280. They were just finishing that, and watching the cars go by and eating my lunch and watching the planes take off. And there was this other kid, you know, sitting down a ways from me by himself, and he was hitting on a joint. I could smell it. And I went, wow, that smells really good. And after he gets about halfway through, he comes over and sits by me and he goes, hey, you want the rest of this? And I go, sure. And he gives me the rest of it. And I sat there and smoked the rest of it while, he went back into class, and I cut the next class and stayed there on that stoop, sitting there, looking out over the airport and the planes taking off, and feeling like no other feeling I've felt in my life. And saying to myself, how could this be illegal and alcohol and cigarettes be legal?
Yeah,
Because alcohol and cigarettes feel like they're taking something away from you, and alcohol is like something to hide your problems. And this kind of brings everything out and makes you feel like everything's okay, you
yeah.
know?
I think everyone has that
So,
similar experience that, of like, yeah, how can this be illegal when you
right.
first
It,
try
it
it?
just
Like,
doesn't make any sense.
yeah,
And so I thought, well, within a year, people are going to come to their senses, politicians or whatever, and it's going to be
mm,
legal because this is, it's the right thing.
yeah. So that would have
But
been 1970 that they would have legalized.
yeah, and
Okay.
then Jimmy Carter came, and I thought Jimmy Carter was like the best president we ever had. Things
Yeah,
started making sense for a change.
yeah,
Some things were a little bit out there, but you know, human nature, the good side of human nature was kind of more on show than what's
mm,
going on now.
yeah,
And so I was, at that moment, I kind of married the weed.
mm,
I married Herb, Lady Herb. I went and danced with her, and I said, I want to dance the rest of my life with you. And that was what I did. I kept Herb by me the rest of my life.
Did you keep growing after that? The like the riverbanks growing,
Oh
the
yeah.
gorilla grows on
Then
the
I
riverbank.
grew Colombian. That Colombian that I told you was really good. I had a bunch of seeds from that because it was full of seeds. And
Yeah,
that taught me too. That Colombian weed taught me, don't be afraid of seeded weed. It can be as good or better
mm,
than unseeded weed,
mm,
because the weed I was growing down the river was unseeded.
yeah,
I didn't leave the males, and in most places we had one or two plants. We didn't have like a whole big patch at that
mm.
time because it was really a lot of paranoia.
Well, yeah, you go to jail for some time. Yeah, at that
Right.
time.
And the females were separated from any males that came up. We didn't
Mm,
keep the males up. So we had all female with no seeds in it.
mm,
This Colombian was so full of seeds that, you had a one or two buds to roll a thin little pinner.
yeah,
And so from that, I learned, don't be afraid of seeded weed. Seeded weed can be as good or better than unseeded weed.
mm,
So I lost my fear of seeds. And I grew that Colombian, but it wouldn't finish. It would you get to October, November, and it would still be just starting to bloom and
It
not
needs a
finishing.
tropical climate,
Right.
or the equatorial climate.
Yeah, and it never came as good as what the original weed was.
Hmm.
So I didn't know at that time there was no indoor growing. Everybody had to make their own seeds every year. There was no seed sales. There was no grow stores. There was no, you know, uh, fertilizers and things like that. Was chicken shit. A bag of chicken shit was about
Yeah.
what you can get. I used to make my own. I had huge mulch piles because I lived in the valley. I had chicken ranches near me. I had a mushroom farm near me. I had uh, dairies that I could go get spoiled alfalfa hay, and I'd make these huge mulch piles that would get so hot I could cook in them.
Hmm.
And I'd use that compost to grow my herb, and that's how I got into the whole organic thing. And I never ever left the organic live soil. I was doing it back in the early 70s. So I grew this Colombian and never did it. So after, trying several times and not getting any results that were good for my stash, that was the thing too, is I was always growing for my stash. I wasn't looking at it as money.
Yeah.
I was looking at it as my my wife,
Yeah. Yeah. Or
my
you're at
dancing partner. I
yeah.
was gonna smoke all that stuff. I usually had a lot extra so I could, turn my friends on too, but it was mainly my goal was for my own stash. I was interested in myself. I was, being greedy at that time, and I didn't have the money to buy it. So anyway, um, I moved to Humboldt with a 1 month old baby and my wife, and on raw land, camped out on 40 acres and developed my place and had a patch up there. And up there, this neighbor came down and his name was Ron Seipel. I'll never forget him. He gave me these seeds and he said, "Hey, my friend went to Afghanistan and he brought some seeds back." He goes, "You got to try them, and see how good they are." And I planted them, and they got 4 feet tall. They were like nothing like anything I've ever grown before. They were indica, and before, the only indica I've had then was Afghani hash and Nepalese hash, Pakistani hash, but never any weed from there. So I didn't have any seeds. But now I had the seeds, and they grew. They were Kush plants. I called it Cyple Kush, 4 foot tall, beautiful, skunky, sticky, gooey buds. And then from that point on, and they finished really fast.
What
From
year
that
was
point
that,
on,
Tony?
I knew that it was good. That was going to be the market for
Yeah.
weed.
What
That
year was that?
that was in 1979.
So that was the beginning of basically the short flowering varieties hitting the West
Right.
Coast at that
And
time.
I knew then that the long flowering stuff was going to get forgotten and that
Mm.
stuff was going to be what was happening because then everybody started growing that.
Yeah.
And that's when the really good Kush started coming around. And I knew that the Indians that I worked with I worked in the Forest Service too. I didn't just rely on weed. I worked.
Mm.
And I was fighting fires and working for the Forest Service. And these Indians in the Hoopa Valley, they had T-shirts with Purple Kush back then in 1979. They'd
Wow.
wear to work, and they had the best Purple
Ahead of the
Kush that I
game.
ever tasted.
Yeah.
It was from the reservation, and it was super sticky. We used to get it and dry it on the dashboard. Going up to where we were working, we'd be driving out there, and it would still be green because it would be in the fall. And that stuff was some of the best herb I ever smoked, as far as indicas go.
Yeah.
So, Kush has been around for a long time. All these people that are saying, "Oh, I got, the 98 Kush or this or that." This was 79. So anyway, I've been growing ever since then. And then I started, that was in Willow Creek on Brannon Mountain.
Yeah.
And later on in the 80s, and then I had to move back down to the Bay Area and work. And I was growing in the Bay Area in my backyard in Campbell down in the Silicon Valley. And I was growing a cross that a friend of mine made with that Kush from that guy Seipel and a Jamaican, and I was giving it to guys in Silicon Valley back when Apple and everybody was first starting up. And
Help
I
fuel the
think that had a
industry.
lot to do with sparking ideas. This weed was that kind of weed. It was like strong, heady, focused weed.
Yeah, that was
And
an excellent pun, by the way.
what's that?
But that was an excellent pun, by the way. You said something about
Yeah, the
sparking their.
ideas.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Tony,
anyway,
I wanted to ask you real quick. You talked about moving up to Humboldt from San Francisco, and when I lived in Arcata, it was common knowledge because I was friends with growers who had been there for a long time. I was friends with multi-generational growers, and the lore, the stories were that the hippies or alternative lifestyle folks in the 60s and 70s moved up from San Francisco to Humboldt specifically to find these like remote mountains to be able to grow. And that's kind of what everybody knew. And so it's really interesting. You tell me that same story just now. That was
right.
kind of for
Yeah,
you.
I mean, it was where I was in the valley trying to grow was super paranoia inducing.
Hmm.
There was, I mean, it was a redneck place, a lot of police action all over the place. It's like I
Yeah.
did not like it. The weather was great, but I could grow good there, but the paranoia was thick. So I figured Humboldt out in the woods. I wanted to move. I had 10 acres in Idaho by that time too that I was going to move up to, but I went and worked for the Forest Service up there and grew up there,
Hmm.
and it's too far north.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what snow was until I got up there. And then I found out what it was when it snowed in the beginning of September and I was freezing cold and said, get me the hell out of here. And I want to go back to California.
Good move because it's a very prohibitive environment still in Idaho.
Right.
Yeah.
Even today. So at that time, I said to myself, I know this place in California
Hmm.
on the coast where it's as beautiful as Idaho, if not more beautiful, and it
Yeah.
doesn't snow. It's not freezing cold in the winter. So I told my wife and my little daughter, who was 1 month old, and we picked up and moved everything up to Humboldt with our last $100, and we're camping out with a 1 month old baby. Yeah, digging
Wow.
latrines and and trying to set ourselves up. And I developed a water system and a patch that I could grow, a decent amount in. And back then it was a patch; it wasn't a whole field of weed.
Yeah.
So that was the beauty of it back then. It was all neighborly and fun and exciting and small scale, and nobody was being greedy. At least in the area I was in, there wasn't a lot of greedy people, and it was.
Did you guys know people there when you moved there?
Oh yeah.
Or did
Well, no,
yeah.
we didn't know people before we moved there, but when we moved there, we met
Yeah.
everybody up on the hill, and we
Yeah.
all traded seeds and
Yeah. Everybody's there for the same reason, pretty much.
right. And
Yeah,
we
at that
weren't.
time.
It wasn't a lot of people that moved up there to grow weed specifically. It was a
Hmm.
lot of people trying to get out of town
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would grow some weed like I was for their
Hmm.
stash.
Hmm.
And, they'd have a little extra so they'd know friends in town that would want some or something like that. And they would, keep their payments going and be able to
Yeah.
live out in the middle of nowhere. I was working for the Forest Service because I had a 1 month old baby. I didn't want to,
Yeah.
rely on anything other than a regular job. So,
Hmm.
but I was growing too. I was working my butt off actually. So anyway, as I was saying, I was growing in Silicon Valley, and then I got the ultimatum from the old lady after 23 years, and she said, "Me or the weed?" And I said, "The weed." And I because of the divorce, I quit for 1 year
Hmm.
to see if I could, get it out of my systems, come up with another decision.
Yeah. Of course, you went into shock and DTS, and you were falling up. No, I'm sure
Right.
you
This
didn't go
is
through.
another one of those hoops the fire that I say you have to jump through. and come through the other side to come
I
to
was
the
kind of saying that. I was
realization.
saying that jokingly, though. I mean, people say that you go through, shock and you go through physical withdrawals and stuff like that when you stop smoking weed. So I was trying to make light, but
Yeah,
it
no,
doesn't. It was a sounds like it was a difficult situation, but still,
it
yeah,
wasn't. It wasn't. It stopping weed was nothing like stopping cigarettes or alcohol.
mm,
It
mm,
you just I smoke cigarettes more.
yeah,
It's a smoking thing. So
yeah.
um
Did other
anyway,
things
I
to
stopped
kind
for
of
a
satiate it.
year just to
Yep.
clear out of my system, and I smoked again a year later, and I came to the same realization I did when I was in high school on that stoop at the church. I said, how can this be illegal? And why are these people trying to make me stop doing
Mm,
this,
mm,
smoking it?
mm,
So I went back to it. And then I moved to Humboldt again. And I kind of cloistered myself up there for 20 years and consumed myself with my passion, which was the herb and
uh,
plants. I had a big garden with collections of palm trees and species rhododendrons from all over the
mm,
world. I worked in the horticultural industry, so I was a plant buyer. I used to get to all the nurseries in California,
mm,
Hawaii, and I collected a lot of plants. And up in Humboldt, there, as you know, if you live there, on the coast. It's a very mellow climate, and I could grow all kinds of tropical plants. So
yeah. You got
I
passion
just
fruit, all
dove
kinds of
into the
stuff.
plant world, and herb was my main plant.
Mm,
And that was inside, and my other plants were outside. And when it was nice and I could go outside and hang out and be with my plants outside, and when it was not so, I'd be in with my herb all the
mm,
time.
mm.
And you know what the weather's like in Humboldt. You spend a lot of time inside with your herb.
In the winter, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
that's how I really refined the the ability to recognize the pearls.
Mm.
And
We're
but
talking about
also
the
because of the
destroyer
tie
variety
sticks,
that you guys
because
run. Yeah,
what's that?
we're talking about the destroyer variety, the pearls
Yeah,
variety that you keep
destroyer
growing.
pearls.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, the tie sticks back in the '60s when they first came out. The first tie sticks I saw were $8, and a couple of friends came over and they had a baggie with like two or three of them in a bag. And I took one out, and we were six people sitting on a couch and chairs. And I unwrapped it real slow and took it apart real slow and checked it out. And it was mostly stems and leaves. And I found a male flower and some little, calyxes in there, bracts and stuff.
For
And
those who don't know what tie stick is, it's a buds tie weed wrapped around a stick, basically
to a
buds
stick.
wrapped around a stick. Yep.
Yeah, and they were about 4 or so inches long. You'd get two or three pinners out of it. It was real thin, and they were $8 each. So a regular ounce of Mexican was like $8 to $10, and these sticks were $8. So there was a big difference there. So when these guys came over with a stick, everyone was laughing at them, and I broke it up and I dissected it real carefully, and I looked at it with a magnifying glass and everything. Because I was into it, I wanted to know why these things were $8, because that was an outrageous price for weed at the time. So I rolled a pinner out of it, and it went around all six people. I got the roach, so I got three decent hits out of it. Everybody else got at the most one or two.
Yeah.
And everybody looked at the guy that brought it and said, "What did you put in this weed? Because this isn't weed."
Hmm.
That's how, things turn so different.
Yeah.
So, and at that time, I learned not to be afraid of Hermes, because I found a male flower in there and I found a seed in there.
Hmm.
And that
But
that
it's
took
still
away the fear
stellar
of
weed.
Hermes from me.
Yeah.
So I go against the standard convention.
Hmm.
Most people, they see a Hermes, they cull it immediately because they don't want to make Hermes offspring. Um, but Hermy pollen doesn't always give you Hermy offspring.
Mm.
You can get straight up females out of Hermy offspring. So, and that's what the pearls are. They're Hermes, or they're not all Hermes, because I've found some that don't and are straight up females. And some of them are like tomatoes. They're like indeterminate. If you keep feeding them, they'll keep going and blooming, and
Mm.
the pearls just keep getting longer and stringier.
So out of the same batch of seeds, you can get varieties that will have that
That
big of difference
characteristic,
between.
and ones that finish in a fixed amount of time,
Mm.
and different flowering times. You get
Yeah.
some that finish in 12 weeks, you get some that finish in 18 weeks. So, there's a great variability in the pearl plants.
But they all
Um,
finish with that weeping
yeah,
tendency with
all
the
that one characteristic, you have the
yeah.
weeping. And actually, Dave and Isaac, my son, have up on the hill, have found an African haze, original haze, that also has that characteristic.
Hmm.
So it's like, if you know what to
Interesting.
look for when the plants are small, they'll give you the pearls. If you finish them, that's the key to these long flowering varieties, is finishing, giving them a chance to show you what they got. And you really don't, you can't, morphology doesn't have a whole lot to do with it. You can find pearl plants that aren't that good too.
Hmm.
Um, leaf size, leaf shape, sativa, indica, that means nothing. Um, those are just names. It's the length of flowering that determines the type of high, and the length of the high that you're going to get, I think,
For pearls, you mean, or for all?
for
Oh, mm.
all herbs.
Yeah.
The 8 week, you can get ones with high THC that give you a real good jolt. THC to me is like voltage in a electricity, right? It pushes, and that's the push you get, the rushes that you get when you first smoke the herb. If you have a high THC variety, it gives you a big push,
Mm.
and with that big push, you can get scared, you can be surprised, you can get a little bit anxious and freaked out.
Yeah.
So not all long flowering varieties, though, have high THC. They might have, you know 15 to 20% THC, which isn't a high amount, but they still get you really high, and they have a different kind of a high. It's more of a, like the pearls. The pearls is a relaxed, floating, euphoric, everything is in its place, kind of
Mm.
satisfied feeling. But you feel like you're floating at the same time, like you're on a magic carpet.
So-
That's how that Colombian was. That really good Colombian. I felt like It felt like you were shooting up weed. It would feel like you were taking off on a magic carpet and flying along. I have a Macintosh stereo that I like to turn up,
Mhm.
and big column RTR speakers with 10 speakers in each box. And I was in this little room in Riverbank, out in the middle of a peach orchard, and I had a nice, soft, comfy chair, and I'd sit there and I'd roll my pinner, and I'd smoke it, and I'd put on some Frank Zappa, and I'd turn it up full blast, and it would just be blazing out of the doors and the windows in the peach orchard on a hot summer day, and nobody could yell at me turn it down, because I was out in the middle of nowhere. So it
Oh
was
man, sounds
perfect,
great.
and I was in heaven. It was like I was flying on the music in a magic carpet. That's what it
Yeah.
felt like, and exhilarating, just exhilarating bliss. That's what it felt like.
So
So,
Tony, I wanted to ask you. You said
and
that.
that was seeded,
Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to talk about the seeded weed too, but I also wanted to ask you. You said that the haze showed that same pearls morphology, the long weeping kind of calyxes, right?
right?
Um, and I didn't know. I understood that like it came from like a destroyer, particular variety, particular cultivar. I
Right. It
didn't
was
I didn't
over
realize that other
blind.
cultivars can morph into a pearls type. Is that true?
Right. It's like all lines, I believe, have the ability to go into pearls.
Hmm.
Charlie Garcia, the owner of Cannabis seed company in Spain,
Hmm.
he's the one that sent me those seeds. I got some seeds from a friend of his that in Mexico that reproduced his destroyer seeds. When I found the pearl seeds, this is how it worked out. This guy in Mexico sent me some seeds. I grew them out. I found two pearl plants, but they were so far into being pearls that I couldn't re-veg them or get a cut to root
Hmm. Hmm.
and re-veg.
Hmm.
So I lost them. I found them and I lost them.
Hmm.
I still had from the seeds that this guy, Charlie Garcia, sent me, I still had 5 seeds. I planted those seeds and 3 of them came up. One was a male and 2 more were females, and those 2 were pearls.
Hmm.
So out of 5 seeds, or actually out of 3, because only 3 popped, I found 2 pearls.
Hmm.
Right after I found the 2 from the other seeds from the guy in Mexico. So they're there. You just have to let them finish.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is most people, when they see that strung out, when they're in the early stages, they're just like one little flower here, one little flower there on a really stretched out, long, tall plant. And when they get to that, people freak. They don't want to have to cut them or bend them or
Hmm.
break them, or they just cut them and get rid of them because they think it's not going to make buds.
Right. Yeah. Which is not.
So
Not in the sense that we know, but
right. Everybody thinks that weed has to be in buds to be good. I think
yeah.
it's better if it's more open and has
Yeah.
more surface area,
Hmm.
and those calyxes, those bracts, have more time to mature out in the open rather than all squeezed in a bud.
Yeah.
And if you look at them with a scope, I mean, everything is covered with glazed with trichomes, and the trichomes are at all stages of development. There's white, there's cloudy, there's clear,
Yeah.
there's amber. And I remember looking at the tie stick with the magnifying glass and seeing lots of amber mature trichomes.
Hmm.
So those long flowering varieties have a chance to develop those resins and those compounds in their resin that give you these kinds of highs.
Yeah, they mature in waves, from what I understand. So the plants,
Right.
the resin matures in waves. So you have some resin that is already long cured, and some resin that's fresh by the time you're
Right.
ready to
And
harvest.
you're sitting there watching a plant at like, I mean, some of them don't start blooming until they're, 9 weeks into bloom, which, other
Wow.
plants will be finished by that time.
Yeah.
So they're just starting and by the time they're like 12 or 13 weeks, you're sitting there going, oh, how are they doing anything? They're not doing anything. They're just sitting there, but they're doing stuff. You just can't see it. You have to be patient. That's the hard part, is being patient.
Yeah.
And, good things come to those who wait, man, is the only way to say it. Um, it's not like, a lot of people think, oh, it's going to be like LSD, and you're gonna freak out, and you're gonna, if you smoke these long flower. No, it's not like that at all. It's just a more refined, deeper, more focused, less confusing, and mind all, mushing up. It's like
Yeah.
that's what I felt when I smoked OG and Diesel and all those other ones. It's like,
Yeah.
because I grew a lot of that stuff. I grew all the OG. I had access to every cut in Humboldt.
Yeah.
And I was online for since the 2000s, and I'm still online. So um, I have access to all the cuts I want and all the seeds I want. People, are very generous, and we send seeds back and forth. And I've tried everything. So the main thing I think is, if people want to find a really good weed, is find a line that you really like the flavors and the feelings
Effect.
from, and then just keep growing and making seeds with that line and furthering that line. Eventually, you're going to come across something that's going to blow you away. I don't care
Okay.
what it is. If it's, it's, to me, it's all good, just different.
Yeah.
If you like indicas, that's great. I like an indica, at the right time. It's a great thing. I've got prostate cancer, so I'm taking a gram or two of RSO every night.
Hmm.
It helps me sleep good. I mean, it's good medicine.
Yeah.
And the sativas are good daytime medicine. They give me energy. They keep me interested in the soil, which is what I love to do, is keep my hands in the dirt and, grow plants. And I mean, it just opens my eyes to all the beauty that's up here where I'm at now with my grandchildren. And,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that's part of the beauty of it, is like, a lot of people, when they were young, were smoking, and then they got responsible and put it all away, or hid it in the closet and smoked it, and their kids were wondering like what they were doing and stuff like that. And I was open with my kids. I smoked in front of them. I grew in front of them. I showed them my plants. I told them how to grow.
Yeah.
My daughter's a practicing attorney in Ukiah now, has her own law office. So um, my son, works in the industry growing. So I wasn't a hypocrite about it, and
Yeah.
I think that that's the way people have to be. The stigma has to be reduced. The herb is just a plant. It's a plant that has beautiful, beautiful aspects to it that people can use for different purposes. It has so many different purposes. Um, and for some government to tell us that we can't have that plant to use is some of the most ridiculous thinking I've ever, you know, heard of in my life. And I'm
Yeah.
still stuck with that. This is going to be legal in a year because it only makes sense. But
50 years later.
yeah, and nothing is making sense even more than it did back in the 60s.
Yeah. Um, Tony, we're getting close to being out of time, but before we go, I want to talk a little bit about Budaro, about the family brand. Um, and so Budaro, if you don't know, for the folks who are watching, listening, is a California brand, and they're doing things a little differently by growing old school varieties, so old land races and sativas, and bringing those to market in California, bringing those to people and having really great success at it. People are loving it. Um, One of the things that I love about what you guys are doing is that the CEO, Dave, your son-in-law, is also, from what I understand, the head grower of. So I the how many I can count probably on my fingers on one hand how many weed companies have the head grower as the CEO of the company. And this is a shame for me because there's so many talented growers out there, A. And B, the grower knows the plant. The grower understands because you're caring for this thing. When we say we're caring for a plant, we're not just like giving it nutrients. We're literally caring. We're thinking about it all the time. We're wishing well for it. We're like pouring our hearts into these plants. And to not understand that and to be leading a cannabis company is far out to me. Like, wow, how did we get to this place?
Right.
So I admire what you guys are doing so much.
Yeah, Dave is definitely and my son Isaac are definitely connected to the plants. They have to be. It's like I went through 57 years of jumping through these hoops to find what I did in these plants, and now I'm turning it over to them. But it's like me talking to you. I can't tell you these things as far as the specific growing of these plants. The long flowering varieties really test you. And it's a personal thing. Everybody has to deal with it themselves. I can't do it for you, and Dave knows that now. He's had a few grows with the pearls and a lot of these long flowering varieties, and he knows what I've been talking to him about.
Yep.
When I sit there and I talk, it's one thing, and I used to be in the plant industry, so I used to describe or try to teach people how to water plants. Everybody thinks it's so easy to water plants. You just put the hose on them and wet them. But there's a way more to it than that. And you can't explain that to people. They've got to do it to understand it. That's
They
why
got to
I
kill.
say
They have to
find
kill
the
plant.
line that you like and
Yeah.
follow it. Be patient and keep growing it, and don't be interested in the money end of it, but and that's the beauty of the legalization now, is the money part is going down, which is hard for somebody like Dave and Isaac, because they're trying to stay sustainable, growing a long flowering plant, a plant that takes 2 or 3 times the time of a regular run of
Right.
indica plants.
Yeah.
So it's real
And
hard, but once you take money out of the picture is when you get the beauty of the herb. That's when you get the pureness, and with these long flowering varieties, you've got to sit down with a jar full and get intimate with it. You got to sit there and roll pinners of it and smoke them slow and sip them. It has to be good quality, and that's not an easy thing to do in 18 weeks. That's a long time to have a plant growing and have to keep it happy and bug free.
yeah.
So
Oh,
everything, is it's exponential. The amount of problems that you can have with each week increase in flowering.
yep.
So it's really a challenge, and it's for the love. It's the love of the plant and the high. It's different than the high that you get from an 8 week. It's twice or 3 times as long of flowering, and nature doesn't waste moves. I've learned that in all the years that I've 72 years I've been alive. I've learned, because I've been totally into biology and plants, that nature doesn't waste moves. Everything has a purpose.
Everything's
So if
efficient.
a plant takes 18 to 20 weeks to finish, it's
Mm.
doing something in that time
Yeah.
that we don't understand yet. That's what I get off to, is a lot of people speak in absolutes, and they speak like, we know exactly what's going on. We don't. There's still a lot of mystery to the herb, and there's still a lot of finding out to do. So anybody that speaks in absolute, anything that I've said in this talk, it's all my experience. I
Yep.
don't, and I'm still learning, now.
Yeah.
You never stop. It's
No,
just a
not with this
beautiful
plant.
thing that like I said, you dance with her through your life.
Mhm.
You have to go through some tough moves sometimes with life and her, in the situations that we're in, due to laws, um, and the stigma. If we can lose that stigma and make it just a regular plant again, then it'll just be part of a family thing where if you have a medical problem, you can seek help from your own garden,
Yep.
rather than having to take drugs or whatever, or in addition to the drugs. I'm not saying put science out. I'm just saying that make it a regular plant so that everybody can enjoy it in whatever way they want.
Like a
And
tomato.
there's no fear involved. I remember when I first started smoking, the nuns, I went to a Catholic school in San Francisco, they were pouring it on about how bad it is and how, it's going to ruin your life and this and that. And, that's all BS.
Yeah.
There's no reason to fear this herb at all. That's all those hoops I've jumped through. That's what it's taught me in that time, in all those 57 years. That's what I've learned. Don't be afraid of Hermes. Don't be afraid of seeded weed, and don't be afraid of the weed itself. It's just a plant. And
Awesome.
seeded weed the seeds, if you find a seed, it's not hard with the sativas, with long flowering sativas. They're easy to break up with your fingers. To me, I used to be an altar boy. So I have a tray and I sit, it's a little ceremony I go through. I I break it up with my fingers. I can smell it. I feel it. It's like the priest when they have the host, right? They have the whole ceremony they go through, breaking up the hose, offering it up to God, whatever, all that stuff, the wine. I used to watch the priest do that. And it's this, you can equate it to the rolling a joint in a tray. I roll that joint, it's my sacrament. And I sit and watch the birds and smoke that joint and drink my coffee, and I'm in heaven. That is the ultimate result of a sacrament to me.
Mm.
So, and it's not easy to clean a few seeds out of a sativa, out of a long flowering plant. So no fear for the seed.
Yeah.
Seed is
You can,
good. You can take that seed and plant it and grow another plant that's going to be like the what you smoked.
mm,
Might not be better, might be not as good, but it'll still be okay. I've never had any that I didn't want to smoke. It's
mm,
all okay, but some of them are like, wow. So, to find that wow, you got to go through the okay.
mm. What would you suggest for someone trying to grow the last question for you? What would you suggest for someone trying to grow the pearls variety indoors?
Don't be afraid of it. Just let it grow, bend it, break it. And the first time you grow it, yeah, it's not going to come the greatest. The second time, it'll be a little better. Every time, I didn't grow it. The first time I grew it, I didn't grow it that great. I was questioning it. The next time I took that's the thing, is you have to take and know that it's not the genetics that are bad. The genetics are good. You just got to bring out what's in those genetics. You've got to get it to express what it has in the genetics to make its beauty. Um, and so I grow it more than one time. If I think a plant has potential, I'll grow it out 3 or 4 times until I get it right. I remember the first time I got the Bubba Kush cut. Katsu Bluebird sent me the Bubba Kush back in like 2004. And he bought the Bubba Kush cut for $1,000. I'll never forget it. I thought, that guy's crazy. He spent $1,000. So I get this cut and I grew it, and it wasn't that good. I thought, how could somebody pay $1,000 for this cut of Bubba Kush? And I thought, well, I'm going to grow it again. This is when I was just starting to grow indoors. The second time I grew it, I nailed it. And I was like, holy cow, this is great. I love this weed. Bubba Kush is like one of my favorites. If I want to get hungry, that's what I smoke, is Bubba Kush. So, it took growing it out again before I got it right. The A5, Neville's cut, I was
Yeah.
able to grow those cuts from a guy in Europe, a very generous man that sent the cuts. I grew them out. The first time I grew it, I was like, it didn't come good. Second time I grew it, it still didn't come as good as it could. The third time I grew it, I was like, wow, this is beautiful weed. I love it. So it takes growing out several times till you get it right. And you get the conditions right, you get the fertilizing right, and then you can get blown away. But
Yeah.
you got to be persistent and you got to be patient.
Patience. Yeah. 16 weeks is a lot of patience
Yeah.
for people, for sure. Well,
Yeah. The
Tony,
longer, the more patience it takes,
yeah, it's
and
been
the
such
more
a,
persistence.
it's been such a pleasure talking with you, Tony. Um, I wish you guys all the best of luck with Budaro. And can you tell the listeners how to find out more information about Budaro and maybe
Sure.
find you?
You can email at head grower. And I'm on Instagram at Budular Humboldt. You could DM me if you have questions. You
Awesome.
could, Irie Touch is my son. You could DM him, or Dave, head grower.
Dave Perkins. Yeah. Head grower
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Yeah. And he's on LinkedIn, Instagram. He's going to be up at Cannabis this weekend.
Yep.
I was going to go too, but I just can't. I don't have the energy, the strength now with this prostate cancer
Yeah.
to deal with it. But yeah, he's going to be up there and he's going to have pearls to smoke. So if somebody wants to smoke some
Hey,
pearls,
find Dave.
yep. And they'll have the Budaro backpack on, so you can find them
Okay.
with that. They're the guys in the crowd.
That's the inside
Yeah,
tip.
so we're available for any questions that people have.
Awesome. Awesome, Tony. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking with you. And
Thank you.
yeah, have a great weekend. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next week.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye, Tony. Thank you.
Bye bye.